What if Sansa pushed and killed Joffrey? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Sansa takes a deep breath, steeling herself for what she is about to do. For once, she tells herself to do as Arya does. She doesn't think or consider what this might mean. She only acts. As Joffrey turns around, he regards her curiously. But that curiosity quickly turns to fear as she grabs hold of his shoulders. He opens his mouth to protest, while Meryn Trant shouts behind her, but she ignores them both. Instead, all she focuses on is Joffrey. For all his talk, it is remarkably easy. He barely puts up a fight as she shoves him over the ledge. His arms flail as he screams out, and then there is a sickening crack. When she glances over, she sees Joffrey's body splayed on the ground, broken as a pool of blood forms around him. But Meryn Trant's shout pulls her back. The knight advances on her with his sword raised over his head. She prepares for the end, but then the hound moves faster. His sword is out and intercepts his strike. The two are locked in combat, but only for a moment. The hound suddenly roars and shoves the Kingsguard back. Their blades flash together, but the hound is larger and goes on the offensive. He smirks as a glimmer of fear crosses the knight. When he advances again, Sir Meryn retreats, the hound's momentum carrying him forward. The knight tries to retreat into the galley, but the hound doesn't let him. Grabbing hold of his breastplate, the larger warrior shoves Meryn behind him, letting him join Joffrey on the ground below. Sansa can only stare, the sound of the knight's screams echoing in her ears. But then the hound grabs her shoulder and shoves her away.
Don't look. We have to go now, little bird.
He sheathes his longsword as he guides Sansa away from the Red Keep. For the first few minutes, they try to walk calmly, acting as if nothing is wrong. No one dares question why the hound is with the Queen's betrothed. But then they hear a scream echoing from the Red Keep, which they take as their signal to move faster. They barely manage to get out of the Red Keep and disappear into the city. Meanwhile, Cersei is in a frenzy when she hears this, ordering the entire city locked down to find Sansa. When the hound is reported missing too, she believes that the dog must be looking for her and doesn't think about it. However, in her eagerness, all sorts of discretion is lost and news begins to spread. Servants all whisper fearfully about how the king has died, murdered by his future wife. These spread out of the city as servants gossip with their friends, and those friends to merchants and traders. By nightfall, the rumors are now all anyone can talk about in King's Landing. Unfortunately, these rumors do little to produce Sansa, as though the Goldcloaks lock down the city gates, it is too late, and the pair manage to escape. With them, the rumors also go flying as merchants and small folk travel in and out of the city hear the news. The story soon reached the high lords and ladies of Westeros, among them the armies in the field. When Tywin hears about this, he is sent into a rage at Cersei's failure. Not only did they lose the king, their only claim to legitimacy, but they also allowed Sansa to escape, who was perhaps their greatest hostage. Without her, nothing is stopping the Starks from executing Jaime. He decides to send Tyrion to King's Landing immediately, telling him to restore the situation as best he can while he tries to deal with Robb Stark. But Tywin doesn't stop there. He also orders Cersei to be removed from the capital immediately, deeming her a liability in the war effort. In contrast, the Baratheons are ecstatic about this development. They see this as a golden opportunity to take King's Landing and both scramble their armies. Renly, instead of a leisurely march, hurries with his fastest troops to reach the capital and take it while it is leaderless. Stannis remains quiet, leaving many to wonder what is happening. Meanwhile, the Stark forces watch this with bated breath. While pleased to hear of Joffrey's death, their real concern is where Sansa and Arya are. In the meantime, they cannot afford to let up the pressure with such a golden opportunity. Robb decides to gather his forces and rides west to further harass the Lannisters and force them to terms. However, Rickard Karstark grows more vocal about Jaime Lannister, urging Robb to execute him. The young king is less eager to do this, first wishing to determine what happened to his sisters. He asks his uncle and mother to begin gathering information about what happened to Sansa and Arya before making his decision. In the capital, the entire city is in chaos because of the recent assassination. Cersei has begun executing anyone she suspects of having a role in her son's murder, whether it be servants, guards, or simple small folk. She is even more incensed when Tyrion arrives instead of Tywin. But as she reads the letter written by Tywin dismissing her, she can hardly believe it.
This cannot be real. I am the Queen Regent, not some lowly servant who can be dismissed on a whim.
Yes, and what a wonderful job you have done so far. But Lord Tywin is the hand of the king you allowed to die. But unlike you, that position has authority. Now, will you cooperate?
What did you do to convince our father to go along with this foolishness?
When have I ever been able to convince our father of anything? No, this was his decision, and only his decision, based on the blunders you have stumbled into. Now, the ship has been prepared and will leave at nightfall to Volantis. I suggest you begin packing if you wish to make it.
If you think I will abandon my children...
On the contrary, I intend to send them with you. Now, off you go, and let them know of the exciting adventure they will be going on.
Ah, I see what you've done. You wish us gone so you can rule. So you can be king. So Barrows, so Preston, seize him.
Now. A city about to be under siege is a poor prize for all that plotting, don't you think? Good sirs, tell me, to whom do you owe the white cloaks to? My dear sister, or Lord Tywin?
The two knights share a look, glancing at one another before ushering the queen out despite her protests. Once she is gone, Tyrion begins organizing the defenses of the city. In truth, he would have gladly joined them in the Free Cities, but someone must stay and handle the defenses. As long as Tommen and Myrcella remain alive, the Lannisters still have a claim. However, the situation does not look good. With Renly fast approaching and Stannis breathing down their neck, they are in no position to resist. More importantly, the loss of Sansa means that they have no real bargaining power, as he soon learns they do not have Arya either. This puts them in an impossible position, with only one real option. They must negotiate peace with Robb Stark to focus on Renly. While Robb had presented terms to the capital, these were meant as a formality more than anything else. However, the Lannister must seriously consider them. Tywin is initially infuriated by this, but Tyrion points out an opportunity in this chaos. Whatever terms they agree to can be reneged on later by simply saying that Sansa is guilty of regicide and acting under Robb Stark's order, allowing them to declare war once they've dealt with the Baratheons. Despite himself, Tywin sees no other choice. Soon, terms are sent. Ned Stark's bones, along with those of his household, are to be returned to Winterfell alongside the greatsword Ice. They will also release the knights and lords captured throughout the war under the expectations that Robb will do the same for his captives. But perhaps most seriously, Robb will be granted the lands of the North and Riverlands as an independent kingdom. While Robb sent these terms as a formality, he is stunned to learn that Tywin is willing to accept them. However, these come with some caveats. The first is that Robb must halt his offensive in the Westerlands immediately, and that Tywin should be given free passage with his troops through the Riverlands. More importantly, Robb is not to take further part in this war and join no other side. The terms are too good to be true, and the King of the North accepts it, withdrawing his forces from the Westerlands and taking most of his army home, save for those who will watch over the border. To their surprise, rather than march east to King's Landing, Tywin instead takes his soldiers home to the Westerlands. He realizes the capital is lost, but that does not mean his army needs to be lost with them. The city means little to him now, since his family is gone. All he needs to do is rebuild and bide his time until the Baratheons destroy each other. The River Lords allow him to march home, but with stern warnings that any further looting and pillaging will be considered a violation of the treaty. By the time the army leaves, the Riverlands are a patchwork of mud and blood, villages burned to ash and fields churned into graves. Sansa Stark pulls her cloak tighter, its once fine fabric now threadbare and stained from weeks on the run. Beside her, Sandor Clegane keeps close watch over her, one hand never far from his longsword as he looks around for any brigands. They soon reach a riverbank and search for a fjord. However, as they prepare to cross, they hear the sound of movement from the woods, and a few figures appear, bearing the mark of House Blackwood. They have longbows trained at them. Their leader pushes their hood down, and his eyes widen as he sees the hound's face.
It's Sandor Clegane, Joffrey's dog.
The men-at-arms prepare to attack as the hound rips his longsword free from its scabbard, roaring defiantly. However, Sansa steps between them.
Stop! He saved me. Do not harm him. He is my escort.
And who are you to speak for him, girl?
I am Sansa Stark of Winterfell, daughter of Lord Eddard and Lady Catelyn. The Hound saved me from King's Landing after Joffrey Baratheon's death.
Murmurs ripple through the group. Some of the men call her a liar and say they should arrest them, but the knight is less certain. Suddenly, an idea pops into her head as she begins to recite the names of the Lords of the Trident, of her siblings, and of the Northern Lords, things no commoner will know. The soldiers remain skeptical, but the knight glances over at her.
If you truly are a Stark, you'll come with us to Riverrun. Lord Tully and King Robb will know if you speak true.
The men surround them, wary but no longer hostile, and lead them through the war-ravaged lands toward Riverrun. It takes several days, but soon the towering castle looms ahead, its banners fluttering in the breeze. As they cross the drawbridge, Sansa's heart aches with both relief and fear. Inside the great hall, Robb Stark stands at the head of the room, his crown slightly askew, his expression wary but alert. Catelyn Stark sits beside him, her eyes widening as she recognizes her daughter. The moment Sansa enters, Robb descends the dais, crossing the room in swift strides.
Sansa!
Robb.
They pull each other into a tender embrace. A moment later, Catelyn joins them, her voice coming out in sobs as she looks at her two eldest children. Her body shakes as she strokes their hair. Robb pulls back and smiles, tears shining in his eyes while he regards her.
We thought you were lost.
When the initial shock wears off, Robb's gaze shifts to the Hound, his expression hardening.
What is he doing here?
He saved me. I would not be here if not for him.
I see. Then you have my thanks, sir. I'm no knight, boy king.
They sit, and Sansa recounts her tale. How Joffrey tormented her until one day, on the Red Keep battlements, she found herself standing behind him as she made him look at the heads of the people he had killed. In a rush of anger, she pushed him over the ledge, and the Hound escorted her to safety.
That monster. The death you gave him is one too good for him. But I'm glad you're safe. But tell me, do they still have Arya?
I haven't seen her since everything happened. I don't know where she is.
We'll find her, Sansa. We're together now, and we'll bring our family back.
The guards are rewarded for their help, and the Hound is taken in as Sansa's new bodyguard. With this news, they at least have confirmation that Arya is out of Lannister hands. However, she soon turns up in the most unlikely place, alongside Yoren and a group of Night's Watch recruits. He had found her wandering around the city by herself, having escaped the massacre in the Red Keep. He recognized her during Ned Stark's execution and spirited her out of the city. The reunion with her is equally tearful, as the two embrace the young Stark, welcoming her back with a smile and an embrace. For a moment, things seem at peace with the Starks. However, King's Landing is anything but peaceful, as the first groups of Renly's men arrive at the outskirts of the city. They soon put the city under siege, cutting off all supplies as they herald the arrival of Renly. Some of the men urge the people of King's Landing to surrender, but as Renly arrives, no such uprising takes place, leaving them no choice but to storm the city. Unfortunately for Renly, time is not on his side, as he receives word that Stannis has landed in Storm's End and has begun harassing his forces there. Though the local lords believe they can handle him, his elder brother is squatting right in the middle of his supply lines, preventing him from getting reinforcements or supplies. With only his speediest troops with him, Renly has a force of about 30,000, the rest of them at Bitterbridge or scattered across the Stormlands. This allows Stannis to begin waging a guerrilla war, taking towns and villages to bolster his forces while reinforcing his position to besiege Storm's End. The forces left behind are helpless to Stannis, who proves an able commander. This puts Renly in a difficult position, to take King's Landing as quickly as possible. The capital stands defiant against Renly's assault, its walls bristling with archers and its gates barred tight. The golden lion banners of House Lannister flutter in the hot breeze, but within, the city's resources dwindle. Hunger gnaws at the small folk, and whispers of surrender ripple through the streets. Renly's army, 30,000 strong, encircles the capital. His bannermen grow restless, their patience thinning as their last assault has been rebuffed, suffering heavy losses in the process. Cursing his luck, Renly begins organizing another assault. This time, he decides to throw everything he has. As the trumpet sounds, siege towers roll forward, shrugging off the hail of arrows, the wooden frames creaking as they inch toward the city walls. Battering rams smash against the gates, while ladders rise against the stone battlements. Gold cloaks, sellswords, and men-at-arms all stare at one another in shock, wondering how they can halt such an attack. But fight on they do, raining arrows and stones down, while pots of wildfire are hurled into the siege towers. Where arrows and pitch fail, this unstable substance gets the job done. The great wooden structures go up in flames. Green fire flickers across their bodies, and rising higher and higher until a great green pillar emerges. Inside, men scream and stumble around, trying to scramble out of the burning tower. Whereas most rush out the door, their armor burning as they run, a few brave souls rush upwards, aiming to land on the walls as the tower is pressed right against them. The first is a dashing figure in gold and white armor. The famed Knight of Flowers leaps out, sword in hand. Gold cloaks can only look in awe as they see the figure emerging, seemingly unhurt like some ancient hero. They are swiftly cut down as his long sword flashes. A handful of men-at-arms see this and rally around him, creating a small island of Baratheon troops on the wall. Seeing this, Renly himself rides up to the front lines, his green armor gleaming in the morning light. His presence inspires his troops, their war cries echoing off the city walls, and he orders his men to support them. A few brave souls pick up a fallen ladder and position it close by as men rush up to support them, providing much-needed support. Though the rams and other towers go up in wildfire, this small island grows larger and larger as more men rush up. Soon the defenders break as this section of wall is under their control. A tower follows after, allowing them to capture that section and open a gate. With the doors open, the battle shifts to the streets, which run red with blood as Renly's forces stream through. The fighting here truly turns ugly as it takes hours of street-to-street fighting to secure the position. Within the city, chaos reigns. Lannister loyalists fight street by street, but they are outnumbered and overwhelmed. Renly's knights cut through the resistance, their banners advancing toward the Red Keep. The city's small folk, desperate and starving, rise in rebellion, attacking the remaining Lannister forces and opening the gates for Renly's men. By nightfall, King's Landing is under Renly's control. The Iron Throne gleaming in the torchlight as Renly ascends the steps, victorious but wary. His triumph is overshadowed by the knowledge that Stannis still threatens from the south. But as he sits on the Iron Throne, he can't help but smile in satisfaction as he enjoys the feeling of his throne. The city smolders, its people battered and broken, but it is Renly's banners that now fly from the Red Keep. For the moment, he is the Ascendant. The next day, Renly begins his rule with the coronation outside the Sept of Baelor. It is an unusually somber affair, as Renly decides to forego its pomp out of respect for the recent destruction. But it ends with a stern message, that all usurpers like his brother and Tywin Lannister will be dealt with. In particular, he has nothing but harsh words for Robb Stark, naming him a rebel and secessionist. He announces there will be no negotiation with Robb, and that he is offering a large reward on his head. Tywin's plan soon comes into play, as he hears the announcement from Casterly Rock with a smile. It was all part of his strategy to ensure the best odds. By agreeing to Robb's terms, Tywin might have given the king in the north a temporary boost, but it also helped him. Robb essentially bound himself to Tywin's cause, and tacitly acknowledged that Lannister's claim was legitimate, making an enemy of both the Baratheons. But with Renly on the throne, Robb's independence is at stake, forcing him to either do nothing or support the Lannisters. This allows Tywin to focus simply on defending from the south against the Reach. As he fortifies his lands there, Renly can at least turn his attention to Stannis. He dispatches Randyll Tarly and Bryce Caron, two of his most trusted commanders, to confront Stannis in the Stormlands. Their combined forces march swiftly to prevent Stannis from gathering any more strength. They arrive and find the region in disarray. As Stannis' campaign proved to be effective and he managed to capture several lesser castles like Griffin's Roost, Weeping Town, and Tarth, the local forces sent against him were unable to hold him or were defeated one by one. Stannis was careful to avoid fighting battles he could not win and to use terrain to his advantage. This is where Lord Bryce and Randyll proved to be effective. They come with 8,000 men and begin reorganizing the defenses, gathering scattered troops and capturing a few isolated castles. They reinforce their position bit by bit while boxing Stannis in. Lords who join the older Baratheon are put to death, while those who remained loyal are commended and reinforced. Soon enough, their numbers begin to swell their ranks and provide them with a strong position to challenge Stannis' army. Though he tries to use the same tactics as before, Randyll is not easily baited and avoids open battles or attacking Stannis unless he is certain of victory. The sheer size of Renly's force forces Stannis to reconsider. With supply lines stretched thin and local support wavering, Stannis is compelled to abandon his siege on Storm's End, to have tactical mobility, and gathers his forces near the fields of Summerhall. As the armies prepare for battle, Stannis unleashes his Shadow Assassin in a desperate attempt to tilt the odds in his favor. The dark creature infiltrates the camp under the cover of night and assassinates Bryce Caron, sowing chaos and fear among Renly's troops. Some desert out of fear, others waver, but Randyll Tarly's iron will holds the army together. He restores order, putting some men to death to avoid a full-blown panic, and reorganizing the army. While it causes some delays, he rallies the rest in battle. The battle begins at dawn. Stannis' forces, though smaller, fight with the discipline and determination for which their leader is known. The initial clash is fierce, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. But as Stannis and his army retreat to a nearby hill, he has his longbowmen rain down arrows on Randyll Tarly's soldiers. The initial charge is rebuffed, giving Stannis some reprieve. This is only a temporary victory, as the Lord of Hornhill has his men dismount and march up on foot, his soldiers raising their shields above their heads and advancing under the cover. It is slow going, and the Baratheon cavalry only adds to the chaos, disrupting their formation and adding to the casualties. These maneuvers and relentless pressure wear down the Baratheon forces. As they are committed to breaking the infantry, a small force of Tarly's cavalry rushes in and breaks through Stannis' left flank, causing a ripple of disorder through his ranks. As the battle rages on, Tarly and his men lower shields and rush forward the remaining distance, rushing under the hail of arrows directly at Stannis' command position. Stannis fights valiantly, refusing to retreat despite the odds. He leads his men from the front, his sword cutting through Renly's soldiers with ruthless efficiency. But the tide of battle is against him. Surrounded and outnumbered, his forces begin to falter. Tarly's relentless assault shatters Stannis' lines, and the Baratheon army collapses. In the final moments, Stannis watches his army collapse around him, but refuses to give in to despair. As the Tarly forces advance through the fields of Summerhall, littered with the dead, a testament to the ferocity of the battle, he rushes right into the lines, going out in a blaze of glory. With Stannis' defeat, Renly's control over the south is now uncontested. The victory solidifies his power, leaving him the undisputed ruler of the southern kingdoms. From 4 kings, only 2 remain. One frustration from the fall of King's Landing was that none of the Lannisters beyond Tyrion were there. Little does he know that in Volantis, Cersei and her children remain, hiding, but also to start gathering allies in the Free Cities, rebuilding the Lannisters' prospects. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the 7 kingdoms and beyond, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.